Good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn friends, Valley First Nation. Welcome to a brand new series I'm excited to do with Mr. Ryan Ginsberg, Value First Automation. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing great, Chris. How are you?
I am doing well, doing well. Why does automation need to be talked about right now? Why are we even talking about this? Why is it worth a series?
Uh, so many reasons. Um, Few things kind of come to mind. Well, one, I just built Workflow Audit Pro, of course.
Yeah.
Um, my solution to the painfully grueling work of auditing, an account's workflows and finding, you know, all the dead bodies from the three previous admins. But I think today's conversation is a little bit bigger than just like inheriting in Portal and doing like the necessary work of cleaning something up. It's automation's like easy to access now. It's a prompt away. It's a LinkedIn post from, oh yeah, that looks amazing. We can like get leads in and then we can like rotate them through our team and then like change life cycle stages, automate the lead status, and like we can just eliminate work altogether is kind of like the general I think it's like the conversation these days is like you don't need to do anything, let AI just do it all for you. And like I kind of understand why people might say that, but there's like a lot of plumbing that goes into really doing that level of automation and orchestration. And I think like that's why we're here is like you start going down that path, you start building in complexity, and the organization does not see that. They don't see that level of complexity, a month or a few weeks into that journey of automation.
Yeah. And I'm reminded of um, earlier this year, I think it was last year, I got a request came in from my partner development manager. Um, and it was a possible opportunity, right? And the request from the customer was we need help building some automation, but we don't need an audit. We just need somebody to come in and just do the automation, and should be like in and out. We might be willing to do an audit after, or like have a relationship after. It's just like, if anybody like says yes to that, like you're just crazy, right? And like, but it's shown like one that's it's a painful, like people don't even want to ask like what happened before. Like can we just get past this point and just build a little bit more, and then we'll get to the other stuff, right? So I think it's an important conversation to have today, is the why behind this. Because way too often, and we'll get into the whys and the why nots, way too often it's because you can. Like, it's either because you can, or you bought HubSpot, right? And you're supposed to automate things with HubSpot, which is true. But if you don't know what the hell you're automating, and who's automating what, it's it's complexity for sure, and it's real easy to hide, like in a portal. So when we talk about uh, like the good reasons, right? Uh, what we're the four that come to mind is we want to scale, like without the like a proportional cost, right? It's not just like, all right, we need to double sales, so we need to double the sales team. Like, that's not tenable. Like, that's not a good way to run the business anymore. Consistency at speed, especially like with AI, we've got to find a way to go faster without losing quality and consistency.
Hmm.
Uh, we've got to capture what humans forget. I mean, one of the easiest automations that everybody loves right now is like call recordings, and then it automatically goes, into the CRM. So that's a good reason to do it, to fill in data gaps. And then also on that same note, to enable human focus on the high value work,
Yeah.
right? Like if we don't have to take notes, and I know some people just like taking notes as a part of their habit, but I'm not one of those people. And like when I know notes are being taken, I can be present like in the conversation now. And when I know it's hitting the CRM and updating it, now I don't have to spend time on that either. So while it might save me time, I like to think of it more of it opens time to do the more like high value things, right? What comes to mind as we walk through those four reasons to automate?
Yeah, I think initially, like what I went to a lot of the times, what I see in portals and what I build automation myself is kind of like a lot of the handoffs or like the transitions of records from, like an example, like a deal that gets closed one, like that particular moment in time, there's like a lot of stuff that kind of needs to happen downstream. And to do all of those downstream movements like is tedious, time consuming, room for error, complex depending on like your stack, right? And that is a critical moment in time where automation needs to be introduced, and it needs to be done like in a tactful and strategic and reproducible way. And then it also needs to take into to consideration, knowing that like future changes will likely be needed, right? Your organization evolves, your team evolves, and like the requirements overall evolve. And like the minute that you introduce that level of complexity of automation, when deal gets marked as closed won, the impact, you might save significant time, money, energy on like that one automation, but you've also added somewhat of a risk or a point of failure that needs to be considered every time that you now make additional changes in your business, in your operations. And I think what I see often is the context of when that decision was made and why is like lost in the leadership, in the management, in the admin that like was there part of that decision. And I think that is like where the risk is. And that's, and all too often we see it in those areas. We see it in life cycle stage management, in lead status management, web form submissions, like all these points of like transition throughout the CRM. Someone's automating something. You don't necessarily know like why or who or what is the intent behind that automation. So
Yeah, I remember one of my initial like positive moments with AI and HubSpot was when you could just auto generate a description for workflows. That was a good day.
everyone's favorite
So
right now. Oh, I don't have to
yeah,
fill that in. It just
y-
knows.
right. And that's really what we're talking about when it comes to like documentation, alongside this. Because it's pretty easy to point to how like these workflows like hit all of these reasons, right? You mentioned activation of deals, right? If you want more deals, like uh, it makes sense to try and automate what happens at the end of the deal process. Um, it allows to like uh, make sure things are compliant, right? That when you activate off of a deal and this thing always happens, right? That creates consistency. Uh, it makes sure you don't miss information, all the transformation of data, that can happen. But also now the ability to activate agents and things like that to better curate the data and collect the data and do pattern recognition as things move across the stage, across the stages. That was a recent update that came out this week, is we can use workflows, which this is the scary part as well. Like we can use workflows to call in agents in HubSpot now.
Wow.
And right. And that's where if you understand your process and like why you're choosing to automate, and it's not just, oh, we can, or like you mentioned, saw it on LinkedIn, like literally, uh, you know, kudos to Stuart Malcolm for building a brand based on steal this workflow for years. But I even was guilty of like, oh, that looks cool. Let me just go build that right now, even though I didn't have like necessarily like a business case to be building it into HubSpot. It just felt like, oh, this would be cool. It's auto magical, like, get all wrapped up in those words. But when and the system is really, really powerful now, like you can pick your spots on like, okay, the high value work is here. How does the automation need to work to get me to the higher value work like faster? Right. And a good question in the notes here is like, does this free humans for work only humans can do? Right. Like, more usually that's more conversations or more strategic, discussions internally. Right. So let's get into the why nots. And then we'll just jam a little bit. So the 5 automation traps here. Automating away the relationship moments. We'll definitely come back to that. Premature optimization. I have a favorite example there.
Same here.
Complexity for complexity's sake, right? 15 workflows doing what 3 could do is an example. Data without context. I think you might have just mentioned that. And dependency hell.
Oh boy.
I'm going to start my favorite one, and these are also good. Premature optimization, right? Automating before you understand the process. Like association labels, folks. Like, if you can't tell me how to build a contact record and everything that's associated to it and what the association labels should be, and you can't do it for me manually in front of me first, I can't automate it for you. Like, what? And so much effort goes into like, okay, well, yeah, we'd probably call it this, so let's add these labels, and then we got to look for the system. Oh, we need this property now, so we can tie it to that so that we can automate these. It's crazy town, man.
Associations and the automations empowering them is so complicated. And I completely agree that you need to be able to like manage your own record manually before you even know what to automate. And if association labels in your particular use case even make sense, because what I see a lot also with association labels is the ability to trigger them. I think this is like a new beta that actually came out, but like maybe a week ago, you couldn't do this, but you could not trigger automation based on the addition or removal of an association label. And the amount of times like where people have asked to like, oh, but like when we add this label, we want like these things to happen. But in order to get the automation to trigger, you needed to do a calculated property, which was a roll up, which was like the sum of the number of association labels of a type. And then that way, and then you needed automation re-enrollment on, say, any time that the count of the associated buyer changes, do this thing. And it causes problems because you have to think about not just the addition of the thing, but the removal of the thing. Like automation has both a forward and a backward path. And we worked on that on a client of ours, right? Of the production systems of like managing a project with SKUs, with iterations. And like there's a point where we can automate up to the product level. And then we needed to automate down to the iteration level, and then the iterations needed to then boil up to the products, and then the products needed to boil up to the project. It's very methodical, and you needed to stitch together things, but it powered an entire process that was already defined and communicated and agreed upon, and like there was buy-in across the whole journey. And once we saw it work, it's incredible. But yeah.
And I'll say that was a good example, like, because already defined, I'd say it was already like whether it's documented or not, there's always a process, right? And that's where, as you start to build this into the system, it can be easy to fall into, oh, we'll just automate whatever we do now, right? And we'll bring that process in. And it's like, well, you built your process without HubSpot in mind. Now that HubSpot does exist, like, what can we do better? Like, what we want to get to the point where you're paying for a platform like HubSpot because you can automate a lot of this stuff. But when you base it on these manual processes, like, that need to be manual in a lot of ways, right? If you're not getting in there, like if we didn't go through a bunch of record moments about how stuff associates, when it gets created, when it disassociates sometimes, right? You run into some traps pretty quickly. And it relates to the first one, like the trap of automating relationship moments. And like, I think we're seeing this commonly, like asking AI, like prospecting agent as an example, like asking AI to do the outreach automatically. Like, everybody's excited about sequences, being able to just, but when you remove yourself from the human moments, right? It's the same will that, like, where we can't expect salespeople to manage association labels like properly when they are the person that knows the relationship, like, layout and architecture better than anybody else. And if they don't, that's a problem, right? So if there's anything they should be doing manually, it's getting those association labels right and associated records right. Because when they do, and the human is like, there's context there, right? When you get that right, it activates like so much of HubSpot, right? Are you seeing when you can you tell when people are trying to automate away like more of the human elements, as you've been doing more audits of late?
Could you explain your question again? I'm trying to formulate an answer.
Like, can you highlight, are you able to see, like, based on what the workflows are, like which objects they're on, like how life cycle stages are moving, like when the automation is applied, like, are they trying to take this element out often?
They're definitely trying to make the lives of reps easier, is what I see. And a lot of the times it's the tedious property switching that I see. So they're trying to automate the life cycle journey. They're trying to, like, you want to dial as fast as possible. So you want, like, on call connected to do a thing on and like set an outcome, like those like little administrative tasks, because if you don't do those things, then all of your reporting breaks, and you need those like minutia things to be automated. So there's a lot of platforms and systems that are coming online now that are taking some of that burden, but more like the complexity is like the custom coded actions, the integrations, the third party apps that you can like layer on. That's kind of where I see a lot of the automation start to go. I also see like I see legacy decisions, right? Like HubSpot, I think I've mentioned this before on a previous show, but HubSpot 3 years ago is not HubSpot today. But they've built an entire business on HubSpot from 3 years ago, and they're not investing enough time or resources into maybe breaking down like old behaviors and old processes to then re-architect what new could look like. I mean, you've got a business to run, you've got teams, right? And it's like they're closing deals every day. Like, how do you break down that complexity? How do you create space for that to rebuild, retrain, and then also like deploy, right? Deploy strategically to, yeah, hey, when a deal is closed one, we don't need to create another deal to represent like the renewal. Like there's a different path for like renewal management. There's a different path for post sale management and fulfillment and support. So that's kind of like I see people automating like a lot of things that no longer really need the automation, or there's smarter ways to automate.
Yeah. I look forward to getting into that. We'll probably hit that, I imagine, episode 3 when we talk about the how. Because I'm excited to help people understand how to effectively draw down all of the workaround workflows that exist in portals as things like sync properties become available. And you just mentioned the association like workaround that people had to do that they might not have to do anymore. It's hard, like, and that's what we're talking about when we talk about hidden complexity. Like, you don't draw it down quickly, or you feel that you can't because you really don't understand how complex the situation is. So you're just like, let me not touch it for now. And maybe we'll get to that someday. And you never get to it because you don't solve this visibility problem. Right?
Constant conversation with current clients of like, oh, we can't touch that now. Let's worry about that later. Like we just need to do this one thing, and like this one thing is like extremely, I don't want to say it's like extremely complicated, but it is extremely what's like the word that I'm looking for, but it's a workaround. It's a workaround because we've created the need for a workaround. I think there was a LinkedIn post the other day of like, I'm not calling it a workarounds are good. Workarounds are accepted if like that's the thing. And it's like, well, we might want to all agree that that's even needed, because we could solving for the problem that we already created because of some of our decisions higher up the funnel. So,
oh yeah, or just all the past decisions, like
all past solving for the
past
decisions. Yep.
If you're around me enough, eventually you'll hear me say that I think SaaS is one big workaround. But we won't get into that today. So let's give you some questions to ask yourself, right? First of all, this should be the easy one that, like, we just need you to start asking it, like, for automation, but for a lot of things that are done in HubSpot, like, should this be done at all, right? So much of HubSpot historically and the ecosystem is driven by like functional success, like, can we do it, right? And not should we do it. And I get it, like, you upgrade, you get the automation workflow, just so easy to go in there. You don't have to go in there. Sometimes you might be over in deal pipelines and just start like automating stuff in there, and it just feels so right. But then, without the plan in place and without understanding what it's actually doing for you strategically, you might get in trouble.
Yeah.
Should a human do it, right? Relationship versus logistics. Do we understand it well enough? Are you clear on the process? I love, when you first showed me the Workflow Audit Pro, like the idea of a clarity score. I love that concept. Number 4, can we maintain it? Oh man, these are good. And number 5, what happens if it breaks? And here's an easy, like trying to find these like chinks in the armor. So if you are like, there's a big black cloud over here, and I just can't think about it. Like a litmus test. If this automation breaks and nobody notices for a week, Was it creating value or just, doing stuff, just adding stuff to the pile? Have you run into any of that actually, where people thought things were running, or like, because I would love to see some happy accidents where somebody gets a bad score and it's like because of this one that like doesn't even matter anymore. And they're just like, oh, let me just get rid of that and the score goes up. Are you seeing any of that as you dive into portals?
So the one thing that I really liked about the scoring engine is it's a branch detection. So you could very easily be building a workflow that is like branched to the max, right? Full zoom out, and you're branching, and you miss an edge, right? So you don't connect an edge. So you are evaluating on conditions, and it's going to go left to right in the branching. And there's a chance that records could hit that branch and just nothing, silence, right? It enrolled, but it didn't do the thing that we're all expecting. And because it's like maybe one value out of 8, it doesn't happen frequently enough to where you may not catch it for a week or 2 weeks. And so what we're trying to evaluate in the scoring, right? Deterministic scoring versus AI scoring are 2 different models of the tool that I built. And it's really to provide like a structure. And so clarity kind of looks at like the naming conventions and the description, like is it doing what we are describing it to do in the name? But then there's also configuration quality of like, do we have branches, and do all the branches have nodes connected to them, and are those nodes doing like a meaningful thing? Very often it's the like custom code is incredible. I love custom coded actions. They can take a complex workflow and tie it into like one action, and it does all the stitching together of records. It's incredible. But what you want to make sure that you do is on the output of that action, you want both a successful message saying this workflow ran successfully, or this workflow failed. And you need to notify that into channels. So like that's one of the things that I think the tool does really well at, is capturing like broken nodes, so that you can be notified quicker than silence, right? It's hard to go through 100 plus workflows and know that you've connected all your nodes correctly.
Yeah.
I've got one. There's another score that we have. It's pretty simple. There's like no risk to it, but I've found several accounts that have workflows that are on enrollment conditions, but like no steps after. So like it's just an on workflow that's dead. There's no risk there, but you're going to get a 0 because you've automated like an enrollment condition, but you're not doing anything with it. So you can reduce the count of workflows by just running that. It's like that customer would have gotten rid of like 8 workflows that are on, just not doing anything. So I think that's fun. And then there's another score that we look at is, when's the last time this workflow was updated? 18 months ago? 18 months ago, you haven't like looked or touched or evaluated like anything?
Well, it's been working, right?
Nothing
For somebody, not
business.
necessarily for everybody involved. But yeah, I'm curious if you want to just take a few minutes, like other things that have been coming to mind, because I think that's the power of, right? This is not a fix for all the things that we're talking about, but just that first step of getting clarity of this is current state, right? We talk about that in every spot of RevOps. Like, can we just take a moment to understand what the current state is instead of just talking past each other constantly? What are some insights that people are sharing with you?
Well, I mean, I'm doing several audits myself for current clients, and you know what's crazy is we can have calls for like a month, right? And there's still lack of understanding of why certain things exist, because the organizational knowledge doesn't exist. I mean, that is a true problem, right? We are doing we have this whole system, but the people that I'm talking to don't have the knowledge, or they like, oh, we don't know. What do you like? That's the problem, right? We don't know why this exists. Well, now we need to figure out Like, if you don't know, what do you do? And like that means you need to like figure out, well, what do we want to do?
Yes. You have
What
some
do you,
tough conversations at that point,
God,
usually.
I need you for those ones. Those ones are impossible.
Right. And
What
that's where like I love tools like this, and like AI is undervalued from this regard. Like when you can just use AI to look at a set of a data set or a situation and then come back with a report. It has a way of removing any subjectivity or personal like statements that could be made, whereas if like, oh, I'm the consultant or I'm in charge of HubSpot and I did the audit and now I'm delivering the bad news, it's so easy to be like for that to go in the wrong direction and then nobody actually solves the problem. Like when you can use AI to uncover and just objectively state what's happening, like it can help you bypass like a bunch of the human behavioral traits that we have that can get in the way of progress here and create the safe space to say, okay, nobody knows what the hell is going on. But we get it, but now it's time to do something about that. We don't get to keep not knowing.
So true. Yeah, you don't get to keep knowing. Like we're using this tool to expose or to bring forward this unknown complexity, right? We're exposing the complexity in the tool, giving you deterministic and AI insights, right, based on the entire enriched data set of what a workflow represents, right? Using your account schema, using all the properties, giving you ability to know, hey, you've got 47 workflows modifying lifecycle stage. Why are you doing that? And then it's like, okay, well, what's cool about that is like now we know the 47, we know what the values are. We can take that step and we can use AI to say, how would you improve this? Right. And even more importantly, now we can go to those workflows and turn them off. Right. We can go and maybe like reassess. Maybe we don't need 47. Maybe we need one, like a really smart one lifecycle stage automation that's built off signals. Right. And
Now
like
we're talking.
that is the vision that I want every HubSpot portal to understand, that is what we can do. You can't do that though. I've had 3 demos right over the last week, and the patterns that I've seen are export workflow data from HubSpot, put it into a spreadsheet, and manually review one by one to say like it's good or it's bad or like describe what it does. And you package it up into a spreadsheet, you send it off to a client, and like they're not reading that. You need like actionable, digestible, big picture visions of what automation is doing under the hood, and how are you as the agency or the RevOps consultant, like how are you going to help one, like digest current state, and how are you going to help reduce risk, improve clarity, and give back the time to your people? And
Yeah.
that's what automation should be used for 100%. So the tool is one step in the process. It takes some of that pain, that bite of going through one by one and doing that. Like in 5 minutes, you'll get insights, you'll get scores, you'll get chat capabilities, you'll get all this stuff, and even like built-in to-dos. So as you run an audit and you come across workflows, and maybe you don't want to do anything now, but you can start to build your punch list of like things you want to like work on. And so you're going to get the AI insights, you're going to get the scores all exportable, and you're going to get a punch list. And then you can ship that off in whichever format you want to whoever needs to see it. It's wild. Like I'm
Yeah.
very happy with the tool as a replacement to current auditing. It doesn't necessarily solve your automation problems, and that's the hardest
Right.
like pill to swallow, even for me as the developer of the tool. But it's like I can't fix your automation problems because I don't know what you should be automating.
Right. There's
So
an automation strategy, and it's a great segue into next week where we're going to be talking about what to automate, and then episode 3 will be how. So I do look forward to next. Well, we won't be here next week because we got the holiday. Week after that, we'll come back and talk about the what when it comes to automation. And I'm really excited to get this series off the ground with you, and I look forward to continuing to share the knowledge, value first automation.
Thank you. Yeah, don't forget to sign up for Workflow Audit Pro, free account, connect your account, 3,000 tokens to do your audit, your analysis, and feedback. I'd love feedback. What do you think? What'd you learn? What'd you gain? And thank you for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. No excuses, folks. 30 seconds. If your excuse has been, I don't know what's going on over there, like, that's no longer an excuse, right? It's not going to solve it for you, but just that movement from uncertainty towards certainty, like, means so much in when it comes to actually creating value with automation. So that's why we're here. We're hoping we helped a little bit today. And until next time, we hope everybody has a great holiday. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thanks, Chris.